I was resistant to the idea of investigating crypto. I'm a longtime investigative reporter at Bloomberg. My thing basically is financial fraud. I actually thought it wasn't a good target for investigation because it all seemed so obvious. I like untangling a fraud and figuring out how it works and how the guys who are running it think that they might be able to get away with it. But with crypto, hey, check out my new coin. It's the best thing since Bitcoin. And then it was going up to the moon. And I felt like there wasn't really anything for me to investigate there. I went to this conference in Miami in 2021. Even though I was skeptical of crypto, I kind of thought when I went to this conference, I would be meeting, bankers who wanted to use crypto to make payments faster, or people who had built like new consumer apps that used crypto that would appeal to the masses. And instead, I met people with some of the craziest business plans I'd ever heard of. I met Sam Bankman-Fried, who was then 29 years old, the richest guy under 30 in the world. He was in town to rename the Miami Heat arena after his crypto exchange FTX. And I met this guy Alex Mashinsky from Celsius, who's kind of been forgotten to history, but he told me his business plan was, you give me your crypto, I'll pay interest on it up to 19%. If you want a loan from me, the loan rate is 0 or something very low. And I'm like, this business plan is so backwards. How much money have you raised for this? He was like, oh yeah, we got like about 20 billion under management. I was just looking around like, is anyone else going to investigate this? These people, there's real money at stake here. The crypto guys hadn't invented anything that was useful to anybody, but they were making a lot of real money from real people, and that it would be valuable to investigate that.
What was the most revealing conversation you had?
I speak to so many of the biggest players in this crypto world, and they are telling me I'm just continually disappointed by how poorly thought through their business plans are. And that maybe I'm the sucker for always coming in expecting to hear a little more. A moment that really took my skepticism to the next level, I was at Sam Bankman-Fried. I hung out with him at FTX's offices in the Bahamas for a few days. And I'd come back about a month later. He was hosting this conference as like at the peak of his success. They just advertised in the Super Bowl. And anybody who was in the Sam Bankman-Fried ecosystem came to this conference. He was interviewed on stage with Tom Brady. It was very boring. He was on stage with Bill Clinton and Tony Blair, who were paid quite a bit to be there. They also had a room at this conference that was basically for all the crypto guys to pitch their projects to the assembled press. And so I had a series of interviews with all these crypto founders. And these were, it seems silly to say it now, but Sam Bankman-Fried he was supposed to be the most legit guy in crypto. He was supposed to be the honest guy who was not saying, Dogecoin to the moon. The one who was going to bring who's trained on Wall Street, who's going to bring a more disciplined approach to the industry. So I thought maybe these people who were pitching their projects at his conference would be like a cut above. But instead, it was one crazy thing after another. I'll just tell you one. I was talking to this guy about he said he had a spaceship video game, and I'm pretty nerdy. So I was like, great, love spaceships. And he was like, well, in this game, you buy your spaceship with crypto, and then you earn like a special token when you do the battles. And this was kind of hot at the time. It was called Play to Earn. There's a whole part in the book about this bizarre craze in the Philippines for a different Play to Earn game. But I was trying to be open-minded. So I was like, and the guy said, we've already sold $300 million worth of spaceships. I was like, okay, you know what? Great. I'm a big nerd. Let's play your spaceship crypto game. And he was like, whoa. The game does not exist. It's years off. We just sold the spaceships, but the game part is hypothetical. And I just felt this was so typical that everyone was so focused on speculation, and so little effort was put into developing things that that anyone would use. And actually that night, I was at a party for something called Degenerate Trash Pandas. And I met a programmer and I was complaining about this. And I was saying, there's nothing, I am skeptical. I would tell people I was skeptical in general if we were talking. I'd say, there's nothing here that any regular person would ever want to use. And he said to me, huh, it's interesting yet you would say that. It was like no one had said this to him before. He's like, why is it that you think that is important? And he wanted to talk about it more. He's like, what, can I have your card? Can we talk about it more? But because I'm a bit old school, I think that when it comes to an investment, in the long run, its value has to be it has to be based on a profit that a company is making, or if you've got a new blockchain that people use, that people have to pay fees to use that blockchain, that could make the coin valuable. But with crypto, for a couple of years there, it was just like magic. Like this money was coming from nowhere. And a lot of these crypto companies are still sitting on huge piles of money from back when it was really easy to raise it.
What was your conversation with Jack Mallers like?
Now, in the crypto world, the Bitcoin people, they don't like to be called crypto people. They think Bitcoin is like the one true coin, and that a lot of the other guys are scammers. So Mallers is one of these Bitcoin guys, and he has a company that facilitates Bitcoin use. He might be 30 years old now, but he was a pretty young guy. And my introduction to him was at this conference in Miami. And this was the highlight of the conference. And he's up on stage. I don't know who he is. He's pacing back and forth. He's wearing a hoodie. He's he's a small guy. He's got curly hair. He looks even younger than he is. And he's talking about, it was kind of hard to tell. He's talking about some kind of surfing vacation in El Salvador. And he's cursing a lot. And he's getting really worked up. And he's talking about how Bitcoin, there's this experiment in the surf town, and it's going to help all the poor people in this town. And Bitcoin's can really do something for the poor people in El Salvador. And then he hits play on the big screen. There's Nayib Bukele, the president of El Salvador, who's got a videotape message for the Bitcoin conference. And he's saying, from now on in El Salvador, Bitcoin will be legal currency. Everyone will use Bitcoin in El Salvador. And Mallers starts talking about this, and he had somehow helped get this idea to the president. And he's talking about this plan. He starts crying, like he's bawling on stage. And in saltier language, he starts screaming, I will die on this hill. I will die on this hill. And I'm just like, what is going on? What is this? Some sort of joke? Why is this guy crying? And I look around, the audience is dead serious. Other people have tears in their eyes. And so El Salvador did do this Bitcoin experiment. The country's already dollarized, and they didn't replace the dollar with Bitcoin. What they did was they offered every citizen a $30 incentive to download this Bitcoin app on their phone. And they told every business you have to accept Bitcoin. And what basically happened is that people took the $30. They got like their cousin who knows how to use computers well to sign up and get the $30. And then no one used Bitcoin. Like I went there to investigate. There was nothing to investigate. There was nothing doing with this Bitcoin plan. And the businesses I felt ashamed because I would ask them if I could use the Bitcoin to pay. And they would, they'd come up with excuses. They'd be like, oh, like the manager locked it in the closet. They were just so sick of these tourists who are coming to ask them to use Bitcoin. But the funny thing with Mallers is that before I went to El Salvador, but once it was already pretty well established that this experiment had failed, I interviewed him again. It was 1 year after the crying speech at another Bitcoin conference. And I thought to myself, well, it would be natural, right? You would say, hey, that was a pretty big deal. Everyone loved your speech last year. Can you bring me up to date on what happened with this experiment in El Salvador? But it was actually super uncomfortable. And he said, I don't want to talk about that. And then I was like, well, when's the last time you went to El Salvador? And he said, I don't remember. And I'm like, you don't remember when you went to El Salvador? And he's like, bro, I don't remember. And then he told me, it's very important to know that it's not my project. And I'm like, I thought you were the die on this hill guy. Come on. That's kind of the crypto way. You make a big deal about the announcement, and then once it fails, it's just in the memory hole and on to the next thing. Or you pretend it didn't fail. And you see that now with Sam Bankman-Fried, his exchange FTX failed. It was revealed it was a massive fraud. He was stealing all the money out of the back of the exchange, basically. And the crypto guys now are like, well, yeah, like that was pretty bad, but that actually means that crypto is good to go now. The bad guy got caught, and it's safer for the new investors. Or the Celsius guy that I mentioned, who literally his trial's coming up in a few months. It would be probably in like the Hall of Fame of frauds, like by dollar value, and people have just totally forgotten about it and moved on. Or they'll say that wasn't real crypto. If something bad happens, they're like, that wasn't really crypto. That was more of like it was because they organized it in a more traditional finance way. That's why it failed.